The young master of the Duke's mansion had eyes on the top of his head, looking down on poor relatives like me who came to seek favors. I had originally planned to rely on the Duke's mansion to marry a promising scholar, but through a series of misunderstandings, I ended up in the young master's bed. Trembling under his murderous gaze, I stammered, "As long as you help me find a good family, I absolutely won't extort you," he sneered coldly, from the sound of it. "You don't want to take responsibility for me." Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. My aunt was a concubine in the Duke's residence. In her youth, she had some beauty and was quite favored by the Duke. My family ran a rice shop in the capital, and we lived decently, but my parents wanted me to marry a scholar. As merchants were looked down upon, I was sent to live with my aunt. My aunt was also very fond of me. Perhaps because she had no children of her own, now that she was older, the Duke was no longer as capable and rarely visited her courtyard, leaving her rather lonely. My aunt threw herself into my marriage prospects with boundless enthusiasm. She said to me, "Chuyin, let me tell you something, better to be the lawful wife of a commoner than a concubine in a wealthy household. Look at me, I enjoyed some luxuries in my younger days, but I wasn't allowed to bear any children. And now I've ended up in this pitiful state, always having to defer to others." I understood exactly what she meant. Who would want to be a concubine, always at others' mercy? If you ask me, we should find a mild-tempered scholar. If he becomes an official someday, I'll be the mistress of the house. Never having to please others, that's the good life. Aunt invited some matchmakers to her courtyard. I stood there shyly, letting the matchmakers size me up. Everything else was handled by my aunt speaking on my behalf. I came to the Duke's residence precisely to bask in its prestigious reputation. When matchmakers mentioned my background, they could introduce me as a distant relative of the Duke's household, rather than just the plain daughter of a small rice shop owner. The matchmakers were thoroughly pleased and left with smiles stretching from ear to ear. I have a feeling my marriage will go quite smoothly, because I've always had damn good luck. And while I may not be drop-dead gorgeous, at least I'm pretty in a delicate way, just right for being someone's wife. After leaving my aunt's courtyard, I strolled around the Star Moon Lake in the Marquis's estate. The Marquis's estate is enormous, breathtakingly beautiful, and exudes such wealth it's downright enviable. I couldn't help but sigh with emotion. If I had such a large courtyard, how arrogantly I would strut about. As I was lost in these thoughts, a group of people approached me. It was the heir of the Marquis's household, Zhao Ruohong. I immediately took a detour, avoiding him by running down another path. This heir of the Marquis's household has eyes that grow on the heavens. He particularly looks down on poor relatives like us. I had actually visited the Marquis's residence a few times before, but every time he looked at me with obvious disdain. Though admittedly, I never brought good news whenever I came, his contempt was completely justified. But I could always choose to ignore his expression. I turned into a small courtyard filled with blooming peach blossoms and exclaimed in amazement, "What other surprises does the Marquis's residence hold that I'm unaware of? There are plenty you don't know about." Suddenly, a man's voice came from behind me, startled. I turned around. It was actually the heir of the Marquis. I quickly put on a smile and straightened up in greeting. "Young master." He looked me up and down. "Song Chuyin. What are you doing at my house this time?" I waved my hand dismissively. Nothing. I just came to see my aunt." Not telling the truth. Think I can't find out? See, this is exactly what makes him so irritating. He insists on getting to the bottom of things, making everyone lose face. However, I sized him up carefully. Zhao Ruohong was also at the age for scholarly pursuits. 2 years ago he placed second in the imperial examinations and now holds a position in the Hanlin Academy. He must know many educated people. Moreover, having him as my matchmaker would be like having a guarantee, perhaps even more reliable than those professional matchmakers, even if he's unwilling to arrange a match for me. Maintaining a good relationship means I could still show him the candidates suggested by other matchmakers and ask him to inquire about their character. With these thoughts in mind, the smile on my face grew much more genuine. "Ah, young master, with your sharp ears and keen eyes, is there anything you can't find out?" I moved a little closer to him. "Actually, it's nothing major. It's just, don't you think I'm reaching the age where I should be getting married?" perhaps because I got too close. He subtly took a step back, his face turning red as he stammered, So, I came to ask my aunt to arrange some promising scholars for me to meet. I chuckled awkwardly. It's really quite embarrassing, I always end up borrowing the prestige of your noble household for this. He looked at me without speaking. His eyes were like deep pools, unfathomable in their depths, truly worthy of being the future head of the Marquis's household. One could never tell what he was thinking. I rubbed my hands together and continued, Young master, you see, we're practically family now. Our family has taken advantage of the Marquis's household for so many years. What's one more favor? Why don't you help me find young master? Don't walk away. Once this is done, you'll be the godfather of my child. What a letdown. Watching his retreating figure, I muttered resentfully, what's there to be proud of, just because you were born luckier than me? The matchmaker's efficiency was truly impressive. Within just 2 days, she delivered portraits and profiles of numerous scholars. My eyes were dazzled by the choices. Among them, I favored most a scholar who had lost both parents, no need to serve in-laws in the future. His name was Xie Qingshan. Though his family was rather poor, he was currently selling paintings while studying, waiting to take the imperial exams. The matchmaker's point was this: with such impoverished scholars, you fear they might suddenly rise to prominence and become unattainable, yet also dread they'll never succeed, leaving their wives to grow haggard through years of hardship. Aunt said she wanted to meet Xie Qingshan in person. The portrait showed quite a handsome young gentleman. Xie Qingshan was staying at a temple on the mountain, where incense was abundant and it was convenient for him to sell his paintings, so Aunt suggested we go take a look under the pretense of offering incense. We left through the side gate of the Marquis's residence. Concubines were not permitted to use the main entrance, such was the rule. When the carriage was halfway there, the sound of hoofbeats came from behind, and the servants announced, "It's the heir apparent." My aunt hastily descended from the carriage to greet the young master. Aunt's future in the Marquis household still depends on this future head of the family, so naturally she had to humble herself. The heir apparent politely bowed to Aunt and said, "Since you're also going to Chenghua Temple, let's travel together." In the carriage, Aunt whispered to me, "The heir apparent is indeed handsome and promising. It's just a pity we can't reach so high. That mother of his already dislikes me." Alas, I secretly lifted the carriage curtain to peek at the heir apparent. He was truly good-looking, though his expression was quite dark. No matter how good-looking, if the temper is bad, I don't care for it. All the things we can't have are just trash, utterly useless. After getting off the carriage, my aunt went to the main hall to worship. While I pretended to casually glance at Xie Qingshan outside, he was right there in the square selling his paintings. He's decent looking, he speaks in a gentle and polite manner too, but looking at his patched clothes, he's really poor. I don't want to live in poverty. Suddenly, an unfamiliar presence appeared beside me, startling me. I turned to look and, to my surprise, it was the heir apparent. He stood with me, gazing at Xie Qingshan in the distance, and asked, "Is that your prospective husband?" His tone carried a hint of mockery. I was annoyed by his words but still replied, "Your Highness, do you know him? How is his scholarship? Does he have any hope of passing the imperial exams, great or small? And what of his character?" He frowned at me. "Why are you treating people like cabbages to be weighed and sold? If others pick you, wouldn't it be like selecting pork? What kind of marriage is that? Where did this idiot come from? Being able to pick and weigh before marriage is already pretty good. Does he think everyone is like him, with so many people fawning over him for marriage? Isn't it just that we ordinary folks want to find someone who truly suits us, to support each other and spend a lifetime together? If he wasn't going to help, fine, but then he had to lecture me too." I rolled my eyes at him and went to find my aunt. He was still shouting after me, "Why are you running? Are you a rabbit or something?" Always hopping off at the slightest disagreement. My aunt asked me what I thought of Xie Qingshan. I said he was alright otherwise, but I was worried he might be too poor, without even a house. Where would we live after getting married? My aunt said we should take another look around. The Marquise heard I was selecting a husband and mentioned taking me to the hairpin flower gathering to have a look. The hairpin flower gathering is an occasion where noble ladies assess potential daughters-in-law. But what really matters is who brings you there, as the saying goes. Having an escort with good reputation and high status serves as a guarantee. My aunt was overjoyed and expressed endless gratitude to the lady. The lady was truly decent in character. Though she didn't care for my aunt, she would still lend a hand whenever we needed help. The principal wife of a great family indeed possessed remarkable magnanimity. I dressed up quite elaborately, with my aunt bringing out her most treasured possessions for me to wear. My eyes gleamed as I looked at her box of treasures. These days, my parents work themselves to the bone running a rice shop, barely earning 100 taels of silver a year, but in a noble household like the Marquis's estate, the annual harvest from their countless manors alone is beyond reckoning. Even my aunt, who's just a concubine, is dripping with wealth compared to our family. The hairpin flower banquet was truly grand. The young master has also gone. Aunt said the madam wants to select a bride for the young master as well. The hairpin flower gathering was indeed extraordinarily lively. Generally speaking, we unmarried young ladies would chat and amuse ourselves in the outer pavilions, while the madams who were seeking daughters-in-law or arranging marriages would sit inside the halls to converse or observe us. I went to the pavilion and quickly struck up a conversation with two girls who appeared to be about my age and had kind faces. After exchanging names, we began chatting about everyday matters. The hairpin flower gathering lasted quite a long time. At one point, I felt the need to use the restroom and went to the outhouse. There, I saw the young master's attendant waving at me from a short distance away. The servant boy looked quite anxious. I hurried over and asked, "What's wrong, young mistress?" "Our young master has been drugged and is now in the side chamber. I don't dare leave him alone there. Could you please fetch a physician or inform the madam?" As we were speaking, I noticed a young lady approaching from the other direction with her maid in tow. The young lady anxiously asked, "Did you see him drink the medicine?" The maid hurriedly replied, "Yes, the eldest young master personally handed him the tea. The young lord drank it without suspicion. Hurry then. You must stall his attendant later." The attendant and I exchanged glances, both seeing surprise in each other's eyes. The competition in the marriage market is fierce these days. Even men aren't safe anymore. The servant quickly pulled me away as we fled. Once inside, the young master was already lying there, red as a boiled shrimp, clearly in great discomfort. When he saw me, he froze for a moment before glaring at the servant. The servant hastily explained the current situation. The young master's frown deepened. I opened the window and said, "We'd better run now." Together with the servant, we pushed the young master out the window as the knocking outside grew louder. The door was being pushed open again. The servant hurried to brace against it. I quickly climbed out the window and helped the young master hide in the nearest room. After locking the door, I glanced at the deserted garden outside and thought, "At least I've done the young master a great favor today. Seems I'll have some leverage to call in later." I was happily lost in thought when suddenly a scorching body pressed against me from behind. I was abruptly pulled into an embrace. The young master held me tight, murmuring, "Hatsune, I feel terrible." Assessing the heat radiating from his body, though thoroughly uncomfortable, I calmly replied, "Of course you do. You're burning up like a monkey. Just endure it. This is what you get for being so irresistible." With that, I stepped around him, preparing to hide on the other side. I had no intention of coveting his body after all. I didn't want to become a concubine. Besides, someone like the young master seemed like the type who'd turn cold after marriage, indifferent to those around him. What a miserable fate that would be. Yet, he refused to let me go. He rested his head against my neck and murmured in a muffled voice, "Hatsune, you smell so nice." I felt goosebumps rise all over my body. I forced a dry laugh and said, "Young master, let's do this. You let go of me first, and I'll check if anyone's chasing us." "No, if I let go, you'll run away." Then, he started kissing me. My innocence. I raised my hand and slapped him. He lifted his head, his eyes completely bloodshot, not a trace of clarity in them. Seeing that I actually dared to hit him, he chuckled darkly. "Hatsune in my dreams feels so real." "What dream? This is real." Then he grabbed my hand tightly and said, "Don't worry, Big Brother will take good care of you." When I woke up, it was already dark outside. Damn it all, today's really an unlucky year. I opened my eyes resentfully, only to see a pair of eyes even angrier than mine. I swallowed hard. "I'm the victim here." I immediately glared at him. He looked away. We silently put our clothes back on. Before he could speak, I said, Let's both pretend this never happened. I'll tell my aunt I went back to visit my parents. After a moment's thought, I realized how unfair this was to me, so I quickly added, since you've taken such advantage of me, you must compensate me. You have to find me a good husband. He must have good character, be well educated, promising, and wealthy. He looked at me as if I were a monster and said coldly, "You've lost your purity, and you still think of marrying someone else. So what?" I retorted bitterly. "This was entirely an accident. I'm still a decent woman. You men frequent brothels all the time without being condemned, while I had just one mishap. At worst, if my future husband visits a brothel, I'll let it slide once." After I said this, his gaze at me turned murderous. I thought about it. The current heir to the throne was probably like a virgin maiden whose purity had been violated after being drugged. I'd better not provoke him further. I trembled as I spoke. "Just help me find a good family, and I promise I won't extort you. Let's just treat it like we were bitten by a dog." He sneered coldly. "From the sound of it, you don't want to take responsibility for me. We didn't manage to argue anything out, because the servant came looking for us." The servant looked at me with utter contempt and hatred, probably thinking he'd come to me for help, only for me to take advantage of him in the end. I really want to gouge out his eyes. Yet clearly I was the one who was taken advantage of. Back at the estate, my aunt was very displeased with my sudden disappearance, saying the madam was already angry. I managed to talk my way out of it after some explanation. As I lay in bed, it suddenly struck me, the contraceptive decoction. I couldn't afford any accidents. The next day, I sent someone to summon the young master's attendant. The maid looked at me as if I were some kind of monster. Indeed, when people address me as Miss Cousin, it's merely out of politeness. My aunt is considered half a servant in this household. What does that make me? But now is not the time to dwell on such matters of pride. When the servant boy arrived, I immediately sent him to fetch some contraceptive concoction. We must keep this from prying eyes. I had just finished speaking when the young master arrived. Standing in the courtyard with the young master, I felt extremely awkward. I asked him, "What do you want from me?" "You'd better not come looking for me again, lest someone discovers our dirty little secret," he replied. "I've ruined your innocence, so I must take responsibility. I'll go plead with my parents to marry you." "Forget it," I immediately objected vehemently. "Your parents would never agree to you marrying me. At most, they'd let you take me as a concubine. I won't be anyone's concubine, so don't even think about it. Hurry up and find me some scholar or official instead. I want to get married properly." "You're already mine. Who else would you marry?" he snapped angrily. "Either you become my concubine first, and after you bear a child, I'll elevate you to the rightful wife. I swear you'll be the only one for me in this lifetime. Is that good enough for you?" I was so furious I nearly saw stars. "In your dreams, I won't be your concubine, and I don't even want to marry you. Your family has so many rules. I'd suffocate living here." "Drop the subject already." The air grew even angrier. I'm doing this for your own good, and you won't even appreciate it. Are you a mule or something? Good or bad, I'll be the judge of that. You took advantage of me, so you must go and check out that prospective husband for me. Go investigate Xie Qingshan." Hey, don't walk away. We parted on bad terms again, before I could even go to assess Xie Qingshan's character. The matchmaker said he no longer wanted to marry. Just when it rains, it pours. The Marquis's estate sent over a large quantity of tangerines. There were so many tangerines that we couldn't finish them all. The servants lamented the waste, saying they'd had to throw away just as many last year. My aunt and I sat in the courtyard eating tangerines. My aunt sighed again about how men were all unreliable, how clingy they were in her youth. But now that she's aged, they wouldn't even glance her way. With no children of her own to depend on, she said I was the only niece who ever came to visit her. I peeled all the oranges and put them in a bowl while playing with the orange peels. I remembered when I was sick and had no appetite, my mother would steam eggs with orange peels for me to eat. Looking at those oranges, I went to the small kitchen to fetch a stove and started a fire. As my aunt kept chattering away, I stood by the pot tossing in the oranges and finally chopped orange peels to boil. Adding some sugar as well, the orange soon turned into a mushy paste, emitting a strong, fragrant aroma. Auntie watched me with curiosity. I, too, looked at the orange in pleasant surprise. After several attempts, I discovered that the best flavor came from scraping off the white pith clinging to the peel, then boiling the orange flesh and peel together with white sugar. The cooked orange jam tastes delicious whether eaten directly or dissolved in water, Auntie exclaimed joyfully. Ah, Maiku. You've really done a great service. When Madam learns that oranges can be cooked into jam, she'll surely reward you handsomely. Just imagine our Marquis estate could present specially prepared secret recipe orange jam as gifts. What prestige that would bring. I stopped Auntie from rushing to report our success to Madam, saying, Auntie, I don't want to share this secret recipe with others. Please don't tell anyone, alright? There are still many oranges left. I want to make more jam myself so I can sell it. Wouldn't that let me earn some money? Auntie's eyes sparkled as she slapped her thigh. Our Maiku is so clever. No sooner said than done. I had originally come to see my aunt about marriage matters, but this marmalade business completely captured my attention. My aunt was very generous with me, saying that the Duke had given her a shop, which she could now let me use for making marmalade, but if I wanted the Marquis's oranges, I'd need their consent and I couldn't just take them. I'd have to buy them properly, and will need to buy even more oranges, also need to buy jars for storage. I can handle the labor myself for now, but it'll still require some money, and if it fails, it'll be a losing business. My aunt reluctantly gave me her private savings, telling me not to lose it all for her. She's counting on that money for her retirement. I worked for half a month, negotiating with the estate steward about buying oranges, then tidied up the shop my aunt lent me, and finally started making orange jam. After working day and night for quite some time, I prepared hundreds of jars of orange jam, but very few people came to buy them, because a jar of marmalade isn't cheap. Adding white sugar increases the cost, making the jam expensive. My aunt kept a constant eye on my shop. While it wasn't convenient for her to leave the estate, I was out early and back late every day. When she learned the marmalade wasn't selling well, she worried even more than I did. Just as we were both fretting, a maid came to say the mistress had summoned us. To my surprise, the lady asked me where I had bought the orange jam. She wanted to prepare some for her eldest daughter to try when sending her gifts. Her eldest daughter had moved south with her husband, who was stationed there for work. Every year, the lady would send them plenty of food, clothes, and daily necessities. My eyes immediately lit up, and I eagerly replied, Madam, this orange jam is something I made and sell myself. If you'd like some, I can bring it to you right away. The lady paused in surprise and said, I didn't expect you to be quite the entrepreneur. After making the orange marmalade, we sent quite a few jars to various households in the Marquis's residence. Unexpectedly, business finally came our way. Once we got started, the business became much easier to handle. Many wealthy families, eager to try something new or to give as gifts, came to buy the marmalade from me. Each jar sold for 200 coins, and I made a considerable profit. Not only did I repay my aunt's initial investment, but I also gave her a generous share of the earnings. Inspired by the success of the orange marmalade, I began making and selling other types of preserves. In just 3 short months, I transformed from a maiden dreaming of marriage into a miser obsessed with counting money all day. My parents came to ask how my marriage prospects were progressing. While studying a new sauce recipe, I casually replied that I was still looking. My mother said, Why are you wasting time on these things? A woman's most important task is to marry well, otherwise you'll become a lifelong laughingstock that others look down upon. My father said, Making money is a man's business. You should focus on learning women's work. Managing a household and raising children is what matters. Because of this business venture of yours, many people are secretly laughing at us, saying you'll never marry, that we don't know how to raise a daughter. My good mood was completely ruined by their words. In the end, they actually said, Never mind good or bad, just get married first. Stop being so picky. I really don't understand how they could say such things. It seemed that as long as they got the marriage done, everything would be fine for them. They didn't care at all about how I would live in the future. I gloomily brewed new sauce. Deeply feeling the hardships of life, I realized that the purpose I originally thought marriage served was to find a good husband who could earn money for me, so I could have the authority to manage the household and also have my own children. Turns out, my parents' rice shop had nothing to do with me. It all belonged to my brothers. I've never experienced the joy of being wealthy, but ever since I started earning my own money, My mindset has changed. Why should I get married? Why should I let another man control my life? Why should I entrust my entire existence to someone else? I can earn my own living. I manage my shop just as others manage their mansions. However, not getting married is not an option. Coincidentally, the young master came to see me again. He's been visiting me frequently lately, but all in secret, though we often found ourselves at odds with little to say. Perhaps because we'd slept together, there was a newfound closeness between us. He sat by the stove tending the fire for me while I washed mulberries and made mulberry jam. The rich aroma of mulberries wafted from the pot. Intoxicatingly sweet, watching the bubbling hot water, I felt particularly satisfied. I've thought of a way. The young master and I actually said these words at the same time. I was startled and asked him, "What?" He pursed his lips and asked me, "What are you thinking about?" I exclaimed excitedly. "I finally know who I want to marry." I didn't notice his darkened expression, only thinking that since I'd already shared the most intimate parts of myself with him, it wouldn't hurt to tell him about my whimsical thoughts. I'm going to marry a man who's about to die. I stopped stirring the mulberries and declared, if I marry him, he'll be dead in a month or two, and I'll be a widow. No one will ever pressure me to marry again, and widows have far more freedom than unmarried women. After my husband dies, I'll reopen my shop. I'll make even more jam to sell. Though I don't have to stick to jam, I could open a restaurant too. I'm quite skilled at cooking. Though it does take more time. What I mean is, I'll surely think of countless other ways to make money. That way, I'll earn more and more until I become the wealthiest in the capital, then the richest in the north, and finally the richest in the entire world. I spoke with such fervor. I could already picture myself draped in gold and silver, sleeping on a bed made of solid gold. I'd also bring my aunt to live with me, care for her in her old age, and treat her well. After speaking, I looked at him with sparkling eyes and said, "What do you think? Am I not particularly clever?" The young master still frowned deeply and said, "Why can't you think of something better? Just imagine, wouldn't it be nice if you married a normal husband who cherished and loved you, cared for and looked after you, first? The probability of that is very low. Forget about men caring for and looking after me. If they don't demand concubines every day or visit brothels, I'd consider myself lucky. Second, even if I married a husband who cared for me, how could that compare to a life where I become the richest person in the world? Wake up. If I became the richest, wouldn't all the handsome men in the world be at my disposal? I could have as many as I want." The young master's face darkened completely. I rubbed my nose, feeling slightly guilty as I said, "Don't think I'm being unconventional. The tea merchant across from our shop is a widow who keeps several entertainers at home, and they all live together quite happily. Having multiple spouses isn't just for men. Anyone can do it if they have money, whether they're men or women, though women do tend to get the short end of the stick. But that's not the point. The point is, I'm going to become a rich, successful business owner." The young master stood up listlessly and said, "I'll head back first." This was quite unlike his usual behavior. Normally, he would wait until I left before following me at a distance back to the Marquis's estate. Speaking of which, I've been living at the Marquis's residence for several months now. Firstly, the Marquis's household is accustomed to having poor relatives stay over frequently, so no one finds it unusual. Secondly, the shop is quite close to the Marquis's residence. And thirdly, my aunt feels lonely, and my presence brings her some joy. "You still haven't told me about your situation," I reminded him. He stood up and looked at me. I looked at him too. The light outside was growing dim. He was so tall, just standing there looking at me, making my heart beat uncontrollably. I wanted to say, "I've figured out how to marry you, but it seems you never considered marrying me." Then he added, "I mean taking you as my principal wife." I was momentarily speechless. Nowadays everyone emphasizes matching social status. Vermilion gates should face vermilion gates. Bamboo gates should face bamboo gates. I never thought he'd actually want to marry me. From this perspective, the young master is a man of responsibility. But if marriage is already this difficult, I feel living together in the future will be even harder. But the fact that he was willing to go this far for me still made me somewhat happy. So I humbly asked, "So what's your plan?" He sat down again and said, "I plan to earn military merits at the frontier. First, if I achieve success, I can request the emperor to bestow marriage upon us. Second, our family's hereditary title ends with my generation, so if I can earn my own honors, it will also secure some protection for future descendants, I said sourly. How enviable. You have so many paths, working as a compiler in the court, going to the frontier to fight, earning merits. I only have this one road of doing business. He frowned. Is now the time to talk about this? Can you focus on the main point? I rolled my eyes. What's the big deal? You're a rich young master going off to war. Have you lost your mind? Besides, would your family even agree? Who knows how many years you'll be gone? By the time you come back, I'll be an old maid, and you'll just marry some young, pretty thing. Where would I even go to cry about it? This time, he didn't hesitate. He called me heartless and ungrateful before storming off. I spat in disgust, trying to sweet-talk me and spin grand promises. Did he think I was stupid? I've been selling rice in the grain shop since I was a kid. I've seen more people than he's had hot meals. But the young master didn't stay angry for long. Within a couple of days, he came looking for me again. This time he even went as far as touching me directly. Watching him stroke my hand and the kitchen knife beside it, I said, "You've dirted my hand, now I have to wash it again. And I almost cut you. Do you have a death wish, Song Chuyin? Is it impossible for you to speak properly?" He glared at me threateningly. I made a face and said with utmost seriousness, "I'm a proper lady. Not only are you meeting me in secret now, but you're also holding my hand. Have you no shame?" He didn't answer me. Instead, he moved the kitchen knife aside, held my head, and started kissing me. I remembered I'd eaten garlic at noon, but soon I was completely dazed by the kiss. When he finally released me, I remained in a daze, leaning against his chest. I shoved him hard. "What are you doing? Getting horny again? You already wronged me last time and still haven't made it up to me. Now you're taking advantage of me again." I wiped my mouth. He'd gotten saliva all over me. "I'm getting ready to leave. I'll set off tomorrow." His face was flushed red too. Where to? How awkward. Why is he acting like nothing happened and talking business with me again? This damn man. Or is this just how everyone operates? Is kissing such a common thing now? I'm going to the frontier to earn glory. Wait for me 3 years. After 3 years, I'll come back to marry you. Even if I don't achieve glory, I'll still marry you. I looked at him like he was an idiot, but he was utterly serious. And I couldn't bear to disappoint him, so I nodded half-heartedly. The young master has left. Now that he's gone, I just can't seem to adjust. Sigh, how fickle human nature is. I heard the lady nearly cried herself into a faint. I quickly had my aunt deliver the mulberry jam I just made to her. Eating something sweet lifts the spirits. Before the young master left, he gave me a great deal of money, an estate, 2 shops, and 10,000 taels in silver notes. Because of these things, I couldn't sleep well at night, afraid they might be stolen, or that my lady and the duke might discover them and report me for theft. If the young master were to accidentally die, I wouldn't even have a witness left, so I left the shops and estates untouched. I hid the banknotes under the bed where I sleep, but I still felt uneasy inside. I should have never taken his money, but I do love taking advantage of others, and he took advantage of me first. Following the principle of reciprocity, it would be unreasonable not to return the favor. In the end, I decided I must buy my own house. That way, I can hide all my silver at home, rather than at my parents' home, worrying they might find it, confiscate it, or at the Marquis's residence, where discovery might lead to accusations of theft. My aunt looked at me with heartfelt satisfaction, saying she had long recognized that I was the most promising child among them all. I truly couldn't agree with my aunt's words, for among my siblings, my performance had always been mediocre, and in childhood, some even thought me simple-minded. The young master is no more, but his servant Changsheng helps me tend my shop. I gazed at Changsheng's delicate features and fell into deep thought. My business was doing quite well, perhaps because of my distant kinship with the duke's household. I recalled how our family's rice shop had nearly gone under before some rival merchants had hired local thugs to cause trouble, and would only manage to resolve it by seeking the duke's assistance. When I was 17, my parents were absolutely desperate to marry me off, but my aunt held the opposite view, munching on melon seeds. My aunt said, "What's the point of getting married? Look at our Chuyin, so capable, already running 2 shops. Marry a man for clothing and food, they say. But our Chuyin can earn her own clothes, food, and everything else, why suffer the troubles of marriage? My mother retorted, if she doesn't marry, she'll have no one to rely on, she'll be a failure as a woman. What woman doesn't marry? My father said, what's there to pick? Just marry anyone for now. Do you plan to keep mooching off us at home forever? The more they wanted me to marry, the more I wanted to defy them. Who do they think they are, always saying such nasty things to me? If any of the workers in my shop dared speak to me like that, I'd have whipped them long ago, Aunt said. She's not eating a single grain of rice from your family now, she's living and eating with me at the Duke's residence, Aunt said with a smile. Chuyin, you just stay with me at the Duke's residence. If you don't eat and live there, other relatives will come to do so. Besides, you're my only relatives. I've worked like an ox or a horse for the Duke's residence all these years, and I eat too little alone. You must help me eat my share back that way. We won't be at a loss, Aunt added. You all say our Chuyin has no one to rely on, but look, when the young master went off to war, he even left his servant for Chuyin. What does that mean? I stared at her in horror, afraid she might say something outrageous. Auntie concluded, so the young master means to marry Chuyin off to Changsheng. Changsheng is handsome and quick-witted, I think it's a fine match. When the young master returns, he'll surely arrange their marriage himself. Whether they serve in the Duke's household or open a shop outside, they'll certainly live comfortably. Why should we worry about it? My parents were dumbfounded. In these times, matchmakers hold great sway in marriages. If the young master truly takes charge of my marriage, then in the future when we need to ask him for favors, he surely wouldn't turn us away. However, looking at my aunt, she really dares to think so. The heir left Changsheng with me precisely to ensure I wouldn't marry anyone else. This is like not needing to use the toilet but still hogging the outhouse. I opened 2 jam shops, then bought an inn and began learning how to run it. Changsheng is truly a master of his craft, handling everything with perfect precision. No wonder he's managed to work for the high and mighty young master for so long, from selecting the location for my inn, to choosing the chefs and waitstaff, even down to purchasing the furniture. Changsheng played a crucial role in every step. Sometimes I feel a twinge of jealousy at how capable he is, which makes me seem utterly incompetent by comparison. Whenever this thought crosses my mind, I slap myself. How could I possibly resent someone for their talent and diligence? With Changsheng's help, our inn's business has been thriving. The upper floor serves as lodging, while the ground floor operates as a restaurant. The inn's specialties also include my homemade jams and fruit teas. To cater to refined tastes and earn some scholars' money, I even launched an activity where scholars could get a free meal in exchange for calligraphy inscriptions. I thought scholars were all noble and wouldn't bend their principles for mere survival. But I overestimated their integrity. Just 2 days in, I was nearly bankrupted by the crowd. Too many people came, though they only brought plain kanji and steamed buns. Nothing could dampen their enthusiasm. There were even some elderly folks who couldn't read a single character coming to freeload. When told they weren't scholars, they'd argue indignantly, I am a scholar, just not a very good one, can't read, what's wrong with that? In the end, Yudi had to limit each person to 1 visit per month. Within a year, I opened 2 inns, 3 jam shops, and bought 2 houses. My parents regarded Changsheng as their future son-in-law, and the more they looked at him, the more pleased they became. Changsheng often hid from them whenever he saw them. My parents gazed at my inn with envy in their eyes, but they still said, what's the use of earning so much money when you don't have someone to care for you? You should hurry up and marry Changsheng. That young man is clearly likable, you'd better keep a close eye on him. Men are like hotcakes in their eyes. I scoffed inwardly but outwardly agreed, saying yes, yes, yes. I now live in a house I bought myself. Changsheng currently serves as both the chief steward of my inn and my personal attendant plus coachman, truly versatile. As I silently watched him skillfully drive the carriage, he suddenly shivered and said to me timidly, young mistress, our young master is about to return. I snapped awake instantly and replied, the young master is yours, but not mine. After a pause, I added, he doesn't have to be yours either. He turned to look at me in terror, then quickly averted his gaze, stammering, young mistress, we all serve the young master, don't you remember? You already belong to the young master. What does he mean by that? Wait, is the young master returning soon? Didn't they say it would take 3 years for him to come back? It's only been a little over a year now. Damn, I nervously grabbed Changsheng's sleeve. You're not thinking of going back to serve the young master, are you? Changsheng struggled to pull his sleeve free and said, young mistress. The young master truly cares for you. Look, he even went to fight at the border for your sake. When he returns, you should properly stay with him. Please don't act like this anymore. No, you can't leave, I said urgently. Changsheng, what good would serving the young master do you? You're much better off with me. Look, the monthly wages I give you are even more than what you got at the Marquis's estate. What's so great about serving him? He's so moody all the time. I treat you so much better. I've never given you the cold shoulder. How about this? Name your price, and I'll raise your wages. All right. After some thought, I added, business hasn't been great at the shop lately, and there are quite a few people eating for free at the inn. Don't ask for too much right now. When business picks up later, I'll definitely give you a bigger raise. Don't worry, I'm a decent person, not one of those heartless bosses. The carriage arrived at the estate, and Changsheng went to park it. Watching his retreating figure, I deeply regretted not having Changsheng's indenture in my possession. Such a fine workhorse, I couldn't possibly let him go. Changsheng is so capable, he can handle anything, utterly loyal, without a trace of malice. I feel like I could forego marriage. But I can't do without such an excellent steward. This clueless young master, couldn't he have returned a little later? The moment this thought crossed my mind, I knew what little conscience I had left was nearly gone. During this time, I've been trying every day to persuade Changsheng not to return to the Duke's residence and instead join me in business. From initial confusion and shock, his reaction became indescribable, yet he stubbornly refused to speak, only saying, young mistress, please don't make things difficult for me. For over a year since the heir went off to war, there hasn't been a single message from him. At most, he'd send word through others just to say he was still alive. At first, I still felt somewhat reluctant to let him go, but later I almost forgot about him entirely. One can only say that time is truly a wonderful thing. I don't know if his promise to come back and marry me still holds, but from what I've heard from the storytellers at my inn, according to how these tales usually unfold, I'd wait for him over a year, only for him to return successful and famous with a stunningly beautiful woman by his side. He'd say he's wronged me and marry her instead. Then I would surely be heartbroken, only to be relentlessly pursued by a nobleman of even greater power and status. After dumping him, I'd marry someone even better, leaving him full of regret and begging for reconciliation. But when I think about it, most of the powerful nobles in the current dynasty are old men. If they were to pine for me, it would essentially become an inspirational tale of a brave young woman battling lecherous old men, far removed from those romantic stories of flowers and moonlight. I clicked my tongue, compared to Wang Baochai's tale of enduring hardship in a cold kill. This story had a different flavor, one that could surely turn a profit. I quickly had the waiter summon the storyteller, planning to have this tale performed during the peak dinner hours, when the heir returned. The entire Duke's residence buzzed with excitement. The threshold was practically scrubbed 10 times over. Auntie was delighted too, because when the mistress was happy, the whole household received rewards. Auntie got several bolts of fine fabric to make new clothes. Anticipating that the Duke's residence would be serving lavish feasts for some time, I decided to stay with Auntie and enjoy some good meals. Besides, since I had at least some acquaintance with the young master, currying favor now would surely pay off in the future. That couldn't be wrong. On the day the heir returned, the mansion indeed hosted a grand banquet, with relatives filling 6 tables. I sat next to my aunt at the edge. The heir had changed his clothes and, it was said, had even gone to the palace to receive rewards and a title. He sat beside his father, the Duke, and the elders of the family looked at him as if he were gold, their wrinkles deep enough to trap flies. For a moment, I felt a pang of jealousy toward him. Being a man is great. Whatever you do, people think you're amazing. However, the Duke's mansion was dripping with wealth, and the food was excellent. My aunt didn't hold back either, piling delicious dishes into my bowl with such speed that another aunt at our table and her elderly mother stared in astonishment. Soon, the whole table's pace of grabbing food noticeably quickened. I couldn't help but feel that no matter where you go, people's competitive spirit runs strong. After toasting and exchanging pleasantries, with both wine and food in abundance, I cradled my slightly rounded belly and followed my aunt back to her courtyard. On the road, I pondered the way the young master looked at me, with a hint of amusement. But he seems to look at everyone that way, and he had been drinking. I wasn't sure if he still remembered me. Then I felt even more envious of him. How wonderful. If only I could return from a long journey to such adulation, like him. Suddenly I felt indignant, thinking it wasn't fair at all. I drank quite a bit at the gathering and felt a bit dizzy, so I went back to my little room to sleep. Half asleep, I felt someone kissing me. I threw a punch and sent them tumbling off the bed. When I lifted the curtain, I saw it was the young master. I froze. He froze in shock. He touched the blood from the wound, grimacing in pain. "What the hell are you doing?" "I struck first. Hitting you hurts my hand too." The young master got up and said, "We didn't get to talk properly earlier. I came to find you as soon as I got free. No wonder people who return from long journeys always seem so fascinating." I couldn't even bother questioning him about his attempt to take liberties with me anymore, so I asked instead, "How did the war go? The emperor made you a great general. How does that compare to your father's duke status?" "Still can't compare to my father," he said, rubbing his swollen face. "After all, our family's title was earned by my grandfather who followed the previous emperor. Seriously, couldn't you have hit me a little lighter?" I poured him a bowl of water, and then, "But I'd say I've done pretty well for myself," he continued. "Anyway, I've already asked His Majesty to grant us marriage. You just wait to be married off." I deeply feel the unreliability of storybooks, yet I find myself momentarily lost. Because I don't understand what meaning marriage holds. Moreover, with so many relatives in his family and affairs so complicated, I might as well open a shop to earn money instead. What's with that expression? He frowned and said, "I heard you've been quite happy this past year or so. What kind of remark is that?" "When have I ever not been happy?" I said seriously. "There's something I want to tell you." He assumed an attentive expression. I flattered, "Since you want to marry me, you must have some feelings for me, right?" "Of course, I quite like you." Then his face turned red, and he quickly added, "It's only natural. Besides, you're already mine, so it's only right that I like you." I was actually quite happy inside. To earn the affection of the high and mighty young master proved that I was indeed quite a catch. I said cheerfully, "Then if I ask you for something, you wouldn't be reluctant, would you? Take whatever you want. What's mine is yours." I suddenly felt a surge of admiration for him. "Look, what a magnanimous person," I exclaimed excitedly. "Then hurry up and give me Changxing's indenture contract. He keeps wanting to come back and work for you. That boy, he's so stubborn. Although my influence isn't as great as your family's, my place still offers good food and decent lodging. How come I can't win his loyalty? I absolutely can't let Changxing leave." The young master's face stiffened for a moment before he asked uncertainly after a long pause, "You're asking me for Changxing's deed of servitude?" I nodded. "Do you have any other capable people there? Why not give me 2 more? I've noticed the people you train are all quite talented. Is there some secret method? Don't hold back now. Aren't we about to get married? Tell me so I can learn too." Hey, why are you leaving already? We weren't finished talking." After being away for over a year, he's still the same, leaving before the conversation's done. The emperor actually did bestow marriage upon us. The way the prince's mother looked at me was as if she wanted to stab me with a knife. Trembling, I said to my aunt, "I didn't ask for this. It was the prince who lost his mind and made the request." "Madam, you can't wrong me." My aunt cracked melon seeds and said, "What are you afraid of? After all, it's the emperor's decree, no one can defy it." I deeply felt the trials and tribulations that awaited me in married life. When I went to the inn to check the accounts, I saw Changxing. The moment Changxing spotted me, he ran faster than a rabbit, though he was limping all the while. I asked the waiter, "What's wrong with the manager? Does his butt hurt?" The waiter and I both watched as Changxing disappeared into the distance. He said, "The manager says all women are tigresses, whether they're yours or not. You should keep your distance, or else your backside will pay the price." I glared at the shop assistant. "What's the point of this useless talk?" The shop assistant scratched his head. "Boss, I really don't know what it means either. That's what the chief
like this. You ate 2 pig's trotters for dinner tonight." I stared at him in horror. "You even counted how many pig's trotters I ate," he replied. "It's hard not to notice. Mother asked if you might be pregnant since your appetite is so good. She wanted to tell you to eat less but was afraid you'd misunderstand her as being harsh, so she sent me to talk to you. Then why did you have to bring mother into this? What if I say it and you think I'm being harsh on you? He shrugged, patted the bed beside him, and smiled at me, saying, darling, let's go to bed. Extra chapter. The heir, Zhao Ruohong, thought that the fifth aunt's family had a little niece who was quite pretty. It's just that every time she came, she always had some request for their family. The little girl had a sweet mouth and could charm all the elders into laughter, with her round, fair, and tender face. She was utterly delightful to look at. I'd just take a detour whenever I saw him. She came around once or twice a year, either asking them for favors or bringing some homemade food from her family. Song Chuyin was 3 years younger than him. He really wanted to play with her, but she firmly refused to play with him. As a child, he was quite persistent in getting to the bottom of things, so he stopped her in the garden and asked her why. She then said ingratiatingly, young master, I am of lowly status. While you are a noble scion, how could someone like me be worthy of playing with you? He detested bootlickers like Song Chuyin the most, so he threatened her, if you don't tell the truth, I'll make sure my mother never allows you to come to our house again. Song Chuyin spoke frankly, when I play with you, every scratch or bump gets blamed on me. What good does that do me? On top of that, I have to keep you happy. Isn't that just asking for trouble? She then forced a smile and added, how about this, let's both compromise. You go find someone else to play with, and I'll do the same, that way we won't bother each other. Does that sound good to you? The young noble's pride was wounded, and suddenly everything about her rubbed him the wrong way. He studied and practiced martial arts with great diligence. Effort is something innate. He still longed to play like everyone else, but they were probably all the same as Song Chuyin, either desperately trying to please him or avoiding him like the plague, left with no choice. He could only throw himself harder into studying and martial arts. Fortunately, he found both quite interesting. In her early teens, Song Chuyin shot up like a sprout, blossoming into a delicate, bud-like maiden, dressed in a pale yellow gauzy blouse. She flitted in and out of his presence. He could still catch the faint fragrance of her on the breeze. How terrifying. He was startled and quickly ran away. Fifth aunt continued to bring Song Chuyin to pay respects to his mother regularly. They sometimes ran into each other. His mother asked if he wanted to take Song Chuyin as a concubine. His mother thought Song Chuyin had a sweet mouth and was quite good-looking. Not bad at all. For a moment he felt both embarrassed and resentful, and didn't speak. His mother assumed he didn't like her after all. Her son had grown up and become as dumb as a mute gourd. She understood, after all, a fool's thoughts aren't the same as normal people's. Song Chuyin still avoided him whenever she saw him. He chased after her, only to see her drooling over the Duke's mansion again. She even asked him to help evaluate potential husbands. Furious, he immediately turned around and left. How could she be thinking of marriage? It seems she's even prepared to marry a stranger. He couldn't comprehend it, yet his mother was actually helping arrange things, saying it would be best to marry Song Chuyin to the son of a minor official, so they could support each other with the Duke's household in the future, though it was more likely the minor official would be the one relying on the Duke's household in the years to come. He opened his mouth, unsure of what to say. He could hardly imagine marrying another woman, probably just another stranger. How could he share a bed with yet another stranger and spend a lifetime together? Could he even imagine her spending a lifetime with another man, and being intimate with him in every way? Yet it seemed like he was the only one in the world plagued by such doubts and worries. No one else was. If he showed even a hint of such concern or confusion, others would think him a fool or believe he didn't understand human suffering, proof he was indeed a pampered young master raised in a honey jar. When he and Song Chuyin woke up in an unfamiliar room together, he felt murderous rage. He had dreamed of doing indescribable things with Song Chuyin. He had wondered whether he could marry Song Chuyin, but he certainly didn't want to lose their innocence together in some shabby place, with no memory of it. He had no idea how he had performed. He was a man who valued his dignity greatly. He felt he had been made a fool of. Those people are truly despicable, daring to scheme against him. Does a man's innocence not count as innocence? But under Song Chuyin's increasingly aggrieved gaze, he could only admit defeat. The two victims each had their own plans. One intended to force their family's consent through the threat of death. Another one wanted to take advantage by having him help find a good husband. In the end, the two of them compromised, each taking a step back. During the new year, Song Chuyin was exhausted helping her mother-in-law with all the preparations. With a large family to manage, hosting guests, giving gifts, handling food and clothing expenses, and settling accounts from the estates and shops outside, there was no end to the work. finally reaching New Year's Eve after much busyness. It was only during the reunion dinner that some leisure was found. The whole family had their New Year's Eve dinner in the main courtyard, gathered warmly around the fire, chatting and laughing for a long time. Only when they couldn't stay awake any longer did they disperse, each returning to their own courtyards. The ground was somewhat damp, the air. Holding Song Chuyin's hand with one hand and a lantern with the other, walked under the half-moon hanging on the treetops. At a glance, the scene seemed a bit desolate. Both of them were quite happy, feeling that after being busy for a while, they could finally relax a little, and their moods were cheerful. Song Chuyin joked, "I see that mother is meek and submissive in front of grandmother, and grandmother, in turn, acts meek and submissive to please the younger generation. Is there anyone in this household who doesn't have to be meek and submissive?" The heir said with a smile. "Grandmother is the most affectionate toward us, and mother, having managed the household for many years, holds grandmother in great respect. Does that mean I'll have to be like your mother in the future? Would it be bad to be like my mother?" "Of course not, it's quite good. My mother is about the same age as yours, but she looks 20 years older." Wealth and comfort truly nurture people. The two gossiped about their elders behind their backs for a long while until Song Chuyin suddenly slapped his hand and said, "Don't you feel like we've forgotten something? It just feels a bit too quiet today." They stopped in their tracks, exchanged a glance, and immediately turned around to head back toward the main courtyard. At that moment, a little child was leaning against the door, crying loudly, "I want my mommy, I want my mommy, woo woo." The little dumpling was still sniffling in her arms, eyeing the old woman warily. The old woman said she would raise him by her side and that he would live with her from now on. The old woman laughed and said, "I only meant to hide you away, but who knew your parents would really forget to take you with them? Ha ha ha. Stay with your great-grandmother, she's got plenty of delicious treats here." The little dumpling turned her head away, burying herself in Song Chuyin's arms without a word. Still babbling insistently to make her leave quickly, everyone burst into laughter. The couple bowed to the crowd, then left with the little dumpling and returned to their own courtyard. The little dumpling remained sulky all evening, her eyes misty with tears, silently accusing her unreliable parents. The two adults, feeling they had been overly joyful, momentarily forgot they had a son after the reunion dinner, which made them quite guilty. However, the little one had two maids specifically looking after him, so there was no chance of him getting lost. After coaxing the little one for a long time, with the young master playing the horse and letting him ride for a while, the child finally stopped crying and smiled. The three of them lay in bed, listening to the occasional sound of firecrackers still popping outside. The little dumpling asked her mother, "Why aren't they sleeping? Big brothers and sisters love to play, then why can't Dumpling go play too? When Dumpling grows up, you'll be able to play just like them." The Duke's mansion had many relatives and even more children. During such festive times, the children would gather in groups to play with firecrackers, running around everywhere, creating a lively atmosphere. Little Twanzi was full of anticipation and said, "Then Twanzi will eat more and grow up quickly." The two adults exchanged a knowing smile. It was a picture of peaceful times. The end.